Years. It was worth it. The future is ahead of us.
Together, we are ready to tackle the challenges of the future. AmCham, Slovakia.
Áno, môžete zatlieskať.
Yes, you can give a round of applause. I wish you good morning, ladies and gentlemen, precious guests. On behalf of our host, AmCham, I would like to welcome you to the second edition of the Beyond Green Conference, Navigating the Future of Responsible Business Practices. Also welcome to these beautiful premises of Einpark offices. This building is the most sustainable office building in Slovakia, and you will have the opportunity to take a look at its premises after the conclusion of our conference. Currently, it's still more and more important for companies to apply the ESG principles, and it appears that sustainability is not just a fashion trend, but it's a very important strategy for the future. Climate change, pollution in the environment, and social inequalities are very tangible and real threats requiring our attention. And it's no surprise that it is the very companies applying the ESG principles are much better able to face the challenges, and they are resilient towards risks. And in the long run, they're more prosperous. Responsible business brings, in addition to other advantages, the following: it increases reputation and trust among customers and investors, cuts operating costs, improves efficiency, and opens up new market and business opportunities. And last but not least, it motivates and engages employees. It's also necessary to state that innovations are the driving force and the forerunner of progress in ESG. New technologies and progressive solutions allow us to cut emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, and to make a better use of resources and build an inclusive society. I trust that today's Beyond Green conference will be an enjoyment for you. We'll discuss hot and pressing topics such as inclusion, diversity in the supply chain, green finance, green development, and the most recent trends and innovations in ESG. At this moment, I would like to welcome Mr. Marián Hlavačka, the CEO of Corwin, that deals with sustainable development and urbanism. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. I'm very happy to see many more faces, many more people to the second edition as opposed to the first edition. I don't have the exact figure, but I would guess 2.5 to 3 times more people. So this topic is apparently getting into all companies. It's not only a topic for those referred to as naive pioneers, that we are crossing the snow where nobody else has been before. Maybe some of you are here because of the birthday party of celebrating 30 years anniversary of AmCham. It's great. There will be a small party. I don't know. Probably alcohol is not served at such events, although I hope that it is. At any rate, as already mentioned, this is the only carbon neutral building in Slovakia. And we achieved this by several measures, from picking the location to the manner how this building is run. But we're unable to cut the carbon footprint to zero, so it's not a zero carbon building. It has 1,400 tons of CO2, and those 1,400 tons, we offset them through the US stock exchange, which we don't like, but we try to find a way also for the offsets, if you have to do them locally. We communicate with MEPs. We look if there is somebody among you who has a way or approach to this topic. We'll be very happy for you to help us. If a company creates or generates a carbon footprint, if it wants to offset it so that the money remains in Slovakia or in the location where this carbon footprint is generated, so that we do not have to use the US traders to move the money to Africa or Latin America. This is my small call. I would be happy, and there are several of us here in Corwin, so if you approach any of us and if you can navigate us how to tackle this challenge, we would like to do this. And this ESG, when I was thinking about it, what kind of abbreviation it is, of course I know what those letters stand for, but whether it shouldn't be rephrased to SGE, because I think, or GSE, because unless there is enlightenment in the heads of managers, then it will be useless to speak about the environment. Although, in the same way, with this S, unless the community you can have an impact on, unless it is with you, then it will be difficult to move those topics on. And then it is just a consequence. It's easy for when the management and employees and the surroundings that you impact, when we're together, these two groups, then it's easy to explain the topic of the environment. Unless you have enlightened management and the community supporting you, it will be very hard for you to do something with the environment. So we try to work with it. We're very active with our tenant. I also saw a few audit companies here offering an ESG report product. We have already published the second one. You can click the Corwin website, take inspiration. Our second report is there, 120 pages long, lots of graphics, not so much text. You do not have to fear. Take an inspiration, and this will help you also with hiring. People who are enlightened will be happy to join a company that has an ESG report because they see that the company runs a responsible business. I have been speaking for more than 3 minutes, so I will conclude this. I'm very happy to see so many faces here. Enjoy it, and let's inspire each other. Thank you. In the moment, I would like to pass the floor to our host, Martin Maštalír, the president of AmCham Slovakia. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests and panelists. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you in these big numbers, in this interesting building, which is carbon neutral, as mentioned. And therefore, it's very important for us to talk about such topic. And when you came, I don't know whether all of you noticed, but there was a video on the 30th anniversary of AmCham, and I would like to say that what Mr. Hlavačka mentioned, whether there would be a party, there will be a great party in September, and you will receive information, and we'll be happy for you to join this party. And I would like to say a few words on AmCham, and I'll be personal, because AmCham will celebrate, or is celebrating, 30 years anniversary, and I've been with it for 6 years in some form, and it's really close to my heart. Mainly because AmCham at present is one of the most impactful chambers or institutions in Slovakia, thanks for its great team, Martina Slabeva and all the AmCham team, because thanks to its people, AmCham is where it is, and there is no doubt it's also thanks to AmCham's board and all of you, our friends and members of AmCham. And that's crucial, because you create the community. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are, and we very much appreciate your support. Currently, we are living dynamic and difficult times, and this Beyond Green conference will tackle the topic of transformation that impacts people, the planet, and it's important for us to take a stance, because it will not be resolved on its own. I look forward to today's debates, panelists, speakers, because there is no doubt it will be very interesting. And not to forget, all this wouldn't be possible without our partners. It's the company Corwin, Citibank, Ernst & Young, PwC, Wolf Theiss, Seesame, ING Commercial Bank, and VPAC, and Nextech. Hopefully I haven't forgotten anybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a very nice day. Enjoy it. Use this day for networking too, and hopefully it will be useful for you. Thank you. And in conclusion, I would like to welcome the ambassador for sustainability and a very important part of the organizational team, Mrs. Erika Vitálošová, who is at the same time the president of the ESG, or the chair of the AmCham's ESG committee. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the pioneers of ESG and sustainability. Welcome to today's exceptional conference. Our planet faces challenges such as climate change or a loss of biodiversity. These threats are not distant, they are here, and they require an immediate response. Many of you have seen the extreme weather that we face today. When I look at the last weekend, when we had 28 degrees Celsius, and the weather today, where the temperature dropped by 20 degrees Celsius, this speaks for itself. At today's conference, we'll not only tackle climate, we'll also tackle other topics, because as obvious from the name Beyond Green, we'll not be talking about environmental issues, but we'll also touch upon the social pillar or sustainability management. This event creates room for us to meet and talk about topics that join us. You'll have the opportunity to listen to great speakers and panelists, but there will also be room during roundtable discussions to talk about various ESG areas which are important for us. During these discussion roundtables, we'll brainstorm about the topics together with you. We'll map the current situation and we'll identify the key challenges, and we set key priorities in the areas that we need to focus on in the coming period. And we'll not end here. AmCham plans a continuation of the discussion about these key topics, and in autumn, during the Festival for the Future, we'll come back to these topics and we'll look for solutions to the identified challenges. I'm convinced that ESG is not just a current trend, but it's a strategic necessity, and I'm very happy for AmCham to have the same perspective. And it established the ESG committee, joining many members, specialists on ESG or proponents of sustainability. Together with the members and with great support by AmCham, we try to promote sustainability, we try to support and enhance cooperation, and we try to assert a positive impact and positive change. You'll certainly agree with me that businesses are the driving force of our economy, and they have a huge impact. They really have substantial resources, and all of us together should be role models on our way to sustainability. It's important not to forget that we're creating the future today by our actions today. Any discussion, any cooperation, any commitment can and will have a positive impact on our way to sustainability. I wish you a pleasant morning, pleasant event full of inspirational topics, discussions, and room for networking. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the first panel discussion that will tackle the topic of diversity and inclusion in the supply chain.
The first panel discussion will be led in English due to our panelists that came to Slovakia from abroad. I would like to welcome on stage our dear panelists, Astrid Mozes, the President Regions at Danfoss. Welcome. And Pavel Šubrt, the co-founder and member of the board of the European LGBTIQ Chamber of Commerce. Welcome. Dobrý deň. Into the topic. Diversity and inclusion are crucial for companies in today's world for several reasons. Diverse teams bring together a wide range of perspectives, opinions, and also knowledge. Diversity of thought leads to better decision-making process, and also inclusive environment fosters mutual respect, drives productivity, and increases the employee morale. However, it is quite challenging to track and also to assess the diversity and inclusion within a supply chain, because supply chains are very complex for some companies, and also small companies in particular don't have matrix to measure the effectivity of the inclusion and diversity in a supply chain. So from your perspective, what are the main benefits of implementing diversity and inclusion in a supply chain, and how these can benefit not only large companies but also small companies, suppliers and subcontractors?
Thank you for the question. And I'm delighted to be here, honored to be invited to this event. Diversity and inclusion is just a piece of the ESG platform. And if you lift it up even further, it's all about climate change. The world is in a crisis, right? And we have to act now. We have to stop, and we need to move into action. And so diversity and inclusion is an element of ESG. And when you have a big challenge like we have in the world, and we need to move towards this green journey, which is right in front of us, you need diversity of thinking. And the definition of diversity, in my mind, comes in many forms. It's the visible and the non-visible. It's about gender. It's about demographics. It's about education. It's about different ways of thinking. And the more diversity you bring into your company, the more creative you can be. You can accelerate innovation. And these were proven facts by companies that have embarked on this. So the benefit is very clear. It allows employees to be more creative. It brings new ideas to the table that otherwise you may miss. It creates an engagement like no other, and motivates people to be part of it. And it accelerates and drives agility towards the end game. So to me, it is a formula for success, and us at Danfoss, we have been on this journey, and we do have our ESG reports in our annual report if you'd like to go in and check it out.
Yeah, we'll click on it after the panel discussion. The same question maybe for you. What are the main benefits of diversity and inclusion programs that companies implement in their strategies?
Sure. Very good morning. As I said, my name is Pavel Šubrt. I was originally born in Czech Republic, now 20 years living in Austria. I'm an openly gay man, father of 2, and before I start, I still need to say that Bratislava is for me always full of surprises, and Slovakia in general. Number one, coming here, it's this wonderful place. We had a conference 2 years ago, and I had the opportunity to be in a similar space, also not furbished yet, and I wanted to be there, but it was not simply possible. So I'm super happy to see that it is possible to use a place, a space, which is not yet having the final furbishment. Because why do we always need to search for, I don't know, something else if it's here, number one. Number two, you surprised me with starting in Slovak. I was like, oh, it was supposed to be in English. Then I started to mentally switch to my non-existing Slovak, but I would manage. And finally, just the message that you start the ESG conference with inclusive supply chain, which goes way beyond just a typical environment where we all know the taxonomy, we all know the rules, and it's easier to follow, starting with something on S, the social. I think it's a great message, and I really
great way to
appreciate
start,
this.
right? And maybe the answer
Exactly.
to the question.
I mean, it's similar what also Astrid said, right? So it's supply chain, and when the supply chain is inclusive and is more diverse, so when you have also companies which are previously underrepresented in the supply chain, what it brings innovation, because there are new ideas, there are new companies coming in. It's also about competition. So anytime you bring somebody new, of course it raises the competition, right? And finally, especially in my case, what I'm looking at is about including those who are underrepresented, which can be LGBTIQ entrepreneurs, can be also women as entrepreneurs and owners of businesses. And here, the link is then to the communities and to make these communities stronger, because they need this. They need to be seen as role models which they can go and further thrive.
I would like to encourage you, dear guests, to interact with us through Slido. We have a hashtag where you can enter, the room of Slido AmCham ESG, so you can ask your questions at any time, and we will do a Q&A session after the panel. So you are incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion principles in your business. How did it transform your supply chain practices?
Well, it was a journey, I have to admit. We started about a decade ago, maybe even longer than a decade. And first, it was all about the awareness. Once people got it, that this is really beneficial, and we saw the results of a more diverse workforce, everybody embraced it. And we started breaking it down into bits and pieces, where we said it starts with recruitment. Mm-hmm. And when you recruit, you have to have a pool of highly diverse candidates, and the best candidates should win. There shouldn't be a quota or anything like this, but the pool has to be very wide. And then once people come in, the onboarding is very essential, and then the retainment. How do you retain somebody in the company to feel engaged and empowered, right? So we're going through mentorship programs. We have formal programs for that. Development, succession planning, all of those things are embedded in how we run the business, in the governance. And last but not least, we want to transfer the knowledge for the I would call it the late career employees to the early career employees. We don't call it old and young. We call it late career and early career. And when you create this connection, you combine the expertise and the useful exuberance, and you create a very powerful value proposition. So that's the journey we've been on. We're a global company, 42,000 people, over 100 countries. We have a slide also in the deck which we can pull up, but cultures are different, and you have to adapt to different cultures. So
now we can see the slides. So if you can comment on it briefly, maybe the second slide?
Second slide is probably the one that represents our footprint, and we do We are a privately owned company, believe it or not, over 10 billion euros. We have very engaged owners, and we're driving this platform across the world in every country. I just came back from Singapore and from India, where we talk about the same things, so the language is the same. And I'm delighted to be part of this. I believe in this wholeheartedly, and I see the results and the fruits of the benefit.
So this is your story. You are the ambassador of the LGBTIQ Chamber of Commerce. So from your perspective, is it difficult to start a supplier diversity and inclusion program in any kind of company? Because you are operating in heavy industry, so the differences may be present between fashion, beauty industry and the heavy industry. So from your perspective, is it difficult in general to start a supplier diversity and inclusion program within companies?
So maybe just to give a context, I'm here representing the EGLCC, which is the European LGBT Chamber of Commerce. What we do, we are basically the advocacy body in between. So we obviously cooperate with corporates on various different locations, those who want to source from underrepresented businesses, specific LGBTIQ owned, and on the other hand, those businesses who are owned by the minorities. To get the corporates on board, it used to be very hard. So I started actually this journey back in 2016. I went to US, met NGLCC, which is the National Chamber of Commerce in the US. They gave this inspiration, like, wow, this can be something finally, a help towards entrepreneurs and business owners which were completely overlooked in the past. And that was for Central Eastern Europe, and I was like, yeah, I'll make it happen. Obviously, in the context of Central Eastern Europe, it's rather hard, so we joined forces with other organizations and we established the EGLCC, and with this came the first corporate partners, and there are all of the global names are obviously part of it. Was it easy for them to start? I think they had this advantage of being linked to, I don't know, American markets, where inclusion in supply chain is a practice for the last 50 years. So they have this advantage. But there are more and more European companies which started as well. So it is possible, and it doesn't have to be so robust and big from the beginning. It can start very small. It can start as small as basically questioning, from whom are you purchasing? From whom are you buying? It can be just the catering which is here today. It can be just the space. It can be anything what you can imagine, because with every purchase, you make basically a certain influence towards the community. On the other, and I'll just make the story complete, so we have the second part, which are the businesses. I think this is a harder one. So we have a database of LGBTIQ-owned businesses across Europe. So these are registered, certified, validated by us. I wish I can say there are thousands of businesses, and also on the numbers, which maybe I would show later, we estimate there are 1.5 million LGBT-owned businesses across Europe. But I cannot bring them at one place, because most of them, they're hiding their identity, they're hiding their sexual orientation, gender identity, and there is a reason for it, because, I mean, look at Slovakia. The people are fearing being shot dead on the street, like 2 years ago. And here, the corporate can make a difference. Because with coming out, of course, it bears this kind of like, will I lose my customers? Will I lose, I don't know, the partners? Then the corporates can be the helping hand, saying that, no, we don't care. I mean, just come. We want to basically look at the opportunities. We want to give you the chance to prove yourself.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to react?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Are you also supporting LGBTIQ Q suppliers?
Absolutely.
In your company?
Part of this diversity, inclusion, and equity platform, it's not just what happens in the four walls of Danfoss, but we're also looking outside. And in addition to that, we created a new layer, and that goes back probably also 10 years ago, called ERGs. employee resource groups. You may have heard about these. These are popping up everywhere across the country. I live in the US, in Minnesota, and I see it all the time. Everybody has an ERG. We have 10 of them. And the ERGs allow people with a common purpose to come together, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it is gender. We have multi-generational ERGs. People that want to join a grassroots movement inside the company and have the same purpose come together, get challenges or opportunities, and bring ideas forward. And they are not led by the executives. They're simply led by everybody who wants to join. And the ERG platforms has opened the eyes in many regions of the world. I've managed 10 regions around the world, and they're different. When I look at an ERG in the US, it's different from an ERG in China or in India or in Asia Pacific. But we're on the same journey together. And it has really helped advance our roadmap. Mm-hmm.
If you could also elaborate on the challenges that you have encountered in promoting diversity and inclusion in your supply chain, and how have you addressed them?
Well, supply chain, you start looking outside. Who do you buy things from, right? And sometimes we buy things from around the world, different supply base and different companies, some big, some small. The awareness is not always there. And we're trying to bring them along on the journey. It's almost like you climb the ladder, you reach out behind and pull them up. And some are ahead in their thinking, some need a little bit of a push to be part and earn the right to be part of our supply chain. I haven't found anybody saying, no, I don't want to do it. But the journey of getting them there to world class may take longer in some regions versus others. But the awareness is there. The piece that has come a little bit later is the equitable side. Diversity, inclusion, people got, we implemented it, we put initiatives around. Equity comes in various different forms. You are inclusive, but let's just say somebody's really tall, somebody's shorter, and you have a fence. And beyond the fence, there is a game that's played, okay? The tall person sees it, the shorter person doesn't. The fence is in front of them. And that's what equity is. You need to provide an opportunity for the shorter person to peek across the wall. And so this topic of equity has come a little bit later in the journey, but it is starting to get ingrained in our thinking.
Thank you. Taking it one step further, so what are the conflicting targets involved sometimes in implementing a supplier diversity and inclusion program? Because we have these benefits, we named some of the benefits, but what are sometimes the conflicting targets, if there are any?
I think conflicting targets, and maybe let me show you one slide. I'll skip some, because it might still be like, are there any companies which really do have targets? Yes, there are, and there are a few examples behind me. And of course, it's a bold statement. It's a bold statement to say that, I don't know, in case of MSD, that I want to spend by 2025 4 billion globally with diverse businesses. It's not easy, right, to say this. And when you make this pledge, when you say that, okay, I want to be that far, or I want to have 20% of all my suppliers to come from diverse backgrounds, how do you reach it then? Because it's not so easy. I mean, the one bold thing is to make it public. The second then bold thing is like, how do I do it? Because then you really have to mobilize all of your sourcing managers and make sure that they understand the value, why to invite others to the pool. And this also gives the reason why such an organization like EGLCC exists. I mean, here we are with AmCham, so I need to mention once again the NGLCC, so the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce in the US, and I think they are globally kind of the leader. They are the ones where if you need some inspiration, if you need some information, you should look at them. Another one, similar organization is in Canada. That's the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, a little smaller, but also. extremely well placed. And then beyond us, and I'll just skip this one, just to give you a bit of understanding what's out there. It's not only about LGBT. It's one specific area what I'm personally looking after, but it's also about ethnic minorities. So the great reference for you, if you want to be more active in this respect, is ESDP. So it's a spin-off from UK-based MSD UK, doing great job in Amsterdam, so in Benelux region, starting in Germany, going further to Italy, France, Spain, and obviously soon moving to the CEE. And it's also about We Connect International, that it's about women. So women as owners of businesses. Because right now, I think the data is around, or the numbers are around, maybe 3% of the spend of large corporates goes to women-owned businesses. And the question is this really reflecting the demography? Are there really only 3% of businesses owned by women? I don't think so.
Are you also addressing gender equality in your supply chain?
We do. Actually, we have a study going on right now to see, in terms of, you know, males versus females, where are we actually? Where do we end up? I'm actually very anxious to see the result of that study, but the fact that we're doing the analysis is really giving me real good hope that we're serious about this. And coming back to gender and female, I want to just promote our region here in East Europe. Adam is our president for East Europe, and we have the highest rating of female managers in East Europe, over 33%. At Danfoss as a whole, we're 22%, but here 33%. So it is possible. If your intentions are right and you're intentional about your actions, it is possible. And the more we lift women, I think we will have a society which is more balanced. We'll see more empathy, because in today's world, yes, it is about the numbers, but empathy goes a long way when you lead vast organizations.
That's right. Do you have women also in the board, present in the board?
Yes, we do. We have women in the board. I'm part of the executive team. There's 2 women on the executive team. We're a total of 6 people, so 2 out of 6 are female. The board has female representation, and as you go down in different layers, we have targets. And I'm a big believer in targets, because what you measure, you improve. And so these targets go deeper in the organization, I think down to 4 or 5 layers. But our team here in East Europe impresses me the most, because they have gone far and above the target.
Coming back to diverse suppliers, how did it create for your company competitive advantage? And did you also maybe achieve innovation through collaboration with diverse and inclusive teams and suppliers?
Well, yes. So if I go back 20 years ago, you were chasing best cost country solutions, right, from suppliers, and the pendulum kind of swung into China and India and so forth. The pendulum has swung back. More localization, more diversity, and when you bring diversity also in the supply chain, you create, you bring innovative thinking to the table. And when the engineers sit down with an organization that maybe is not just chasing the best cost, but also creating innovation, you start exploring and discovering opportunities that you never thought could happen. I ran engineering a couple of years ago, global engineering, and I was part of some of these meetings. As suppliers come in, local, smaller supplier with diverse backgrounds, and they put an opportunity on the table. Our engineers would say, this is not possible. And it was in the end. So I think I would encourage all of you, diversity is a good thing, inclusion is an even better thing, and equity has to be part of the formula.
And empathy.
And empathy is everything.
It's above everything.
Above everything.
What are the specifics of the LGBTIQ businesses, if there are any? Because you said that they are sometimes under coverage, they are not showing to people that we are here, we are from the LGBTIQ community, so they are maybe sometimes hiding their identity. Are there any other specifics that you could maybe bring out?
I think the businesses are the same as the others. And it's not just one specific, sourcing category. Of course, I mean, there is a certain tendency that creative industries are more present. So if I would look at our data and our database, I think good 1/4 is just from creatives, being it marketing agencies, being it branding agencies, digital marketing, PR. But it goes beyond, right? So it's all of the different supplies. It's building maintenance, it's translations, it's consulting, anything possible. In the creatives, you find them easier. In the other ones, well, it's a hard work for us, but we do the best on this one. So I would say they are the same, but there are still a few things which makes them different. I would say they are more resilient. That's number one. Why resilient? Because they have a certain backpack they are bringing, right? So they have this whole identity and the proof of themselves. All of these minority underrepresented businesses, they are well better equipped. So they are resilient, they are more flexible. I think they go even extra mile to get the job done. And so that would be one thing. And the second thing is it links back to the cause, what also brings us together. If it happens that the company wins and it's a minority business, so diverse business, then the chances that if this creates, for example, new jobs, so if there is a business opportunity and the business need to grow, we'll hire new people, the chances that there will be diverse practices in the company and ESG-linked practices is very high. So it's actually also something which maybe makes them just a little bit different, but otherwise the same. I don't know if you have anything to add on.
No, I agree with you. I think you'd be surprised, right? When you start opening the door, what you'll find out. So you just have to have the mindset, the willingness to go the extra mile.
So yeah, it's about creating the opportunities for these minorities or for not only LGBTIQ community. So how do you ensure equitable access to procurement opportunities for underrepresented suppliers in your company?
Well, look, in reality, you pick the best supplier with the best quality and the cost-competitive solution, right? And if that fits, obviously the pool of suppliers has to include the ones that are underrepresented. But if they meet the criteria, they're in. Mm-hmm. But the criteria is the same for everybody. And sometimes you'll find that the suppliers that you always used have become a little bit more complacent, right? That happened. And you don't get new ideas, or they don't come in with a better mousetrap. And you find a diverse player that all of a sudden challenges the status quo. That's what we like. Because our objective is growth as well. We've doubled the company in a very short period of time. We're over 10 billion. We're on a journey to double again in 5 years. We reached the world in every corner that we can possibly think. And without this creativity and D&I, it's not going to happen.
Would you like to add anything?
I'll just add to something what Marta said. I think really, once again, that this whole inclusive supply chain, it's not about that basically the company walks in and gets the business right away. That doesn't work like this. They still have to compete. So it's about giving the opportunities where typically these opportunities would not be visible to them, right? Mm-hmm. So it's basically making this one proactive step and inviting more of the companies to be part of the tender. Because this is the helping hand, and if they compete and if they win, yes, then this is what we care about.
Mm.
Just because you're diverse, it doesn't guarantee your seat at the table. You have to meet all the challenges that the company is looking for.
Yeah, and deliver performance
deliver, yeah.
and everything else. So what are the main barriers to promote LGBTIQ businesses in Europe? Because we are talking about creating opportunities, also barriers maybe. If we look at Slovakia, you know, we are a very specific market in this respect when it comes to LGBTIQ. And our, you know, like our idea of how these people behave, how these people work, we are a little bit hostile, you know, in that respect. So are you encountering any barriers? Yeah, please?
I'd like to take this one because, as I mentioned, we have several ERGs. And each one of us in the executive office is a sponsor of the ERGs. I happen to be a sponsor of the LGBTQ ERG as a member, as an allied, not as a member, but as an allied. And I'm trying to understand some of the challenges they have and how we can open the doors. And what I found in the early stages of our discussion, the US is more accepting than maybe some other regions. And when it came to East Europe, we found barriers. That's the honest truth. And people were very hesitant to come out or be part of this group. And I asked why. Why aren't you joining? And it was the fear factor, exactly what you were saying. I can't come out. I have to pretend I am somebody that I'm not. And our objective as part of the ERGs, we want everybody to come to work their authentic self. We don't want you leaving your apartment door and pretend to be somebody else. Bring your authentic self to work. But when we don't create an environment that is inducive to inclusion, people don't feel comfortable to do that. And I think we have more work to do. In some regions of the world, it's illegal even. How do we overcome that? And as an allied to the group globally, I'm trying to find ways to replicate what worked in one region to another, but the barriers are quite immense, I have to say.
You're right. So it's the fear. It's the fear, and sorry, I mean, it has been like programmed in us that if we are different, then we fear of not being accepted by the rest of the society. So this goes back to basically, as you said, so people are fearing. If it's about workplace, typically 30% of the productivity is lost if the person doesn't bring the full self of the person to the office. 30%. And just multiply it, okay, we take now LGBT community, 6%, a small, very, very on the low scale, the estimate. So 6% by this 30%, by how many people are hiding their identity, what, maybe 40% it is in Slovakia, we can look up the data, times your mandate rate. And you lose money if you don't basically do everything possible to have 100% of these people at work.
Just because of bad perception and fear.
Exactly. And unfortunately, corporate segment needs to step in, because if the government is not doing it, and if the government is actually going in some of the countries completely against inclusion, then it's the role of the business segment to step in and say like, hey, this is the safe space for all of our, not only for employees, but whoever is working with us.
We have a beautiful slide here. We can demonstrate how you are addressing diversity and inclusion in your company. Yeah, so we mentioned all of these areas: equity, diversity and inclusion, belonging.
Exactly, and I also brought this next slide in here, which is the circularity. I don't know if I keep clicking, but it doesn't move forward, so I'll click again. Next page, please, whoever controls this. There we go. It's kind of a circular thinking. And the circularity comes in many different forms in how we work with our employees, how we treat our employees. It comes in the form of how we develop our products. I've had experiences in engineering, running engineering organizations. When we design a product, you want the product to be sustainable. through its life cycle and even after life cycle, how you obsolete it. It's also circularity in terms of our operations. You produce stuff, you sell stuff, and then what happens with some of the waste? Can we reintroduce it in our processes? So the circularity mindset in operations has been transferred also in the way we think about our people. And then I had one more slide at the very end, and I think I already talked about it. I just happened to pick 5 of our ERGs, and you can see them right behind me. Each one of these is led by an executive from the office. And we discover new things. We have blind spots. That's the real truth. And when you bring a variety of people together, they say things, we think it's solved, and it may not be solved, and we move into action.
We mentioned in the beginning that measuring diversity and inclusion in a supply chain may be tricky because there is lack of transparency sometimes. Then you have these complex layers of suppliers. So how you are addressing tracking of diversity and inclusion, and what matrix maybe are you using to assess it in your company?
What we found is enforcing it never works. If somebody tells you, do this, most of the time it doesn't work. We see it with our kids too, right? Ladies, men in the room. The way to do it is by leading the way and showcasing how we're doing it. And we do have metrics in the company. We share those metrics, and we set the expectations that we'd like to alliance ourselves with companies that are equal in mindset is the same. That's the way to do it. The enforcement never works, and we bring them along on the journey. And once they see, they get benefits out of it, you converted their minds into this new way of thinking.
So you are also able to track the progress through this approach.
Yes, but in all reality, the transparency, as you said, does not always exist. And so you use whatever they tell you. You can't go in and do an audit, obviously, on that specific topic. So it's leading the way, bringing them along is the best chance and the best option we have in today's world. Someday, maybe the transparency is better and we can take advantage of it.
Coming back to,
And then let's face it, we all operate in Europe, right? So in Europe, there are some other legislations. Let's look at GDPR. So of course, we need to be careful. So maybe we are not putting basically for the categorization back down to basically, okay, the women owned, is it the LGBT owned? It's diverse business. It's as simple as this. So you define a target. If it's 4 billion, if it's 3 million only, well, you have defined a target and you work towards it. You have to make sure that then in the MBOs of your sourcing teams, there are also targets that they need to be active, and at least there must be at least one diverse business invited to each of the RFP. Simple as that. Sorry.
No, that's great. It's a panel discussion, so feel free to interact at any time. So what are the business advantages if they incorporate LGBTIQ suppliers? And what social change is it driving? Because we were discussing, not just the situation in Slovakia and other regions. So how can it drive a positive social change if not only big corporations are implementing or collaborating with LGBTIQ businesses?
So in my view, it's very simple. The advantages we talked about, so it's innovation, it's driving competition, it's then also basically reaching out and supporting the communities. It's basically reflecting also the whole demography of where the company is operating. And the second part...
How can it drive a positive overall social change?
Yeah, sorry. And so on this one, it is about role models. Because the world, and especially in our region, in Slovakia, but it was the same, or it is the same in Czech Republic. When I was born, I mean, how many role models did I see? None. I saw some, I don't know, like dark suit, people with a tie, all the same gender, all the same party. No. So we need to really see role models. And with supply chain and inclusive supply chain, you are able to actually show role models beyond what's normally being seen.
I I totally agree with you. Role models is the way to go, but also awareness building. You know, if you don't talk about it, if it's always put under the carpet, any issue under the carpet, you'll never get to it. And so oftentimes social media drives us towards a very discontent dialogue. Somebody says something, somebody else is rebuttaling in a very discontented way. We need to show a little bit of empathy in social media. I actually stepped out of it because I didn't like some of the dialogue that happens out there. But without the awareness, I don't think we can make progress fast enough. Yeah. And we need to be patient with each other, whatever opinion we have.
I completely agree with you on that. And we have some questions from our audience, from people who are interacting with Slido, so we can take any of them. Would you like to answer any first?
So the first one, have you put inclusivity and gender in procurement or contracts with suppliers? I think it's a very valid point. So what maybe we've been focusing today, it's about so-called tier one. So me as, a company, I'm basically buying, sourcing from a diverse business. This is the tier one. You can also go tier two, where you have some kind of prime suppliers. So you are a large company, and let's also face it, as a large company with a contract always of 50 pages, the small ones will not be really able to do business with you. So you say that all of your prime suppliers, the big ones as well, they need to make this whole inclusive supply chain in practice. And this is called tier two. And just imagine if you do this, what multiplication you get into. Because you ask all of your prime contractors, prime suppliers to be inclusive in the supply chain. And suddenly it's not only 1 to 1, but 1 to 20, 1 to 50, I don't know.
Take 2 and 3 if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think we answered question number 2, but maybe you have some additional thoughts on that. You both come from Western companies. How do you find this region specifically when it comes to this topic?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it already. In terms of diversity, we are leading the pack, I have to say, and it's only thanks to our team here locally. They're very intentional about the actions.
The next one.
The next one, okay.
If you were a superhero, what unique powers would you need to combat the twin challenges of climate change and inequality?
Okay, so yesterday we were in the same building and I had the opportunity to be a keynote speaker for energy efficiency in buildings, okay? So the topic, and this kind of ties into diversity, inclusion, and equity just a little bit. And we had politicians in the room, we had local politicians, we had commissioners from Brussels, we had alliance partners in the room. And everybody talked about renovation of buildings. There's millions coming into Slovakia. Where do you want to spend it? Because there's people that may not be able to afford it. And there's people that can afford it. Do you peanut butter it across? Do you understand the term peanut butter? I think you do. It's more of a US term.
We like it to spread it on the bread.
Spread it on the bread equally. Or do you allocate it more to people that are less fortunate? And we had this discussion and nobody had an answer to it. Everybody recognized the climate change needs us to take actions in transportation, heavy industry, buildings. Those are the 3 industry segments that generate most of the greenhouse gases. Carbon should not go up in the air. Carbon should go down in the earth. We burn too much fossil fuel, right? We need renewables, we need energy efficiency, etc. So now we have a plan to renovate buildings. I think we had in Slovakia 1.1 million buildings, right? Those buildings will be here in 2050 by the time we need to reach that goal. Those buildings have to be renovated. Where do you start? And that comes back to inequity. Should we focus on the less fortunate to move them along, or do we do a peanut butter across? Maybe our journey is slower that way. So we need politicians to help us figure this journey out, but I think businesses are ready. We were ready. We can solve this problem. We have solutions. We have technologies. We just need the politicians to help us point the money and allocate them in the right area. And I'm very hopeful this is going to happen in Slovakia.
Okay, let's take a last question.
Should I pick one, or
You can pick one, the one that you like most.
Yeah, I'll take the GDPR one because that's always a funny one. So is sufficient data available to create diversity commitments and reports on them? Does the GDPR hinder collecting the data? Well, to some extent, yes, but this is exactly the reason why organizations like We Connect International, so women entrepreneurs, or like MSD-UK, ESDP, ethnic minorities, or EGLCC exist. Because, I mean, we can do it. We can basically offer to be part of the network. Of course, there is a legitimate interest. There is also signing the terms and conditions, including the whole GDPR clause, and they can be on our database. Do we disclose it publicly? Of course not, right? So it's basically then confidential information. But then we work with partners, with the corporates, and they're asking us, we need somebody in this and this segment, and we are able to offer the prospects. So that's exactly how this works. Because you, as a corporate, you cannot go to your suppliers and ask them, well, give me your gender identity or sexual orientation. If you are, I don't know, ethnic, no, you cannot. But this is exactly why this in between something like AmCham, the bounding body, this is similar for us as EGLCC.
Thank you very much. Yeah? Would you like to add the final word?
Oh, I just took the mic, and I think we probably...
Yeah, I'm very sorry we are running out of time. Thank you very much for your interesting opinions, views on this very, very interesting topic. And you can then hang out, with our audience during the networking and the coffee break. Thank you very much once again. And also thank you for coming. From Minnesota? Was it Minnesota? Minnesota, wow. Yeah, we know. And are you enjoying your stay in Bratislava?
Very much.
Yeah?
Very much so.
Great, thank you very much. Have a great day. A my sa teraz presunieme.
And now we will continue with the next point on our agenda with our guest speaker, story time, effective implementation of ESG principle.
Therefore, many companies hire their own ESG managers, or at least they cooperate with external experts in the field. And I am very honored to welcome among us Gaia Arzilli, the International Director at AWorld, a company that focuses on promoting sustainable actions and environmental responsibility through social, gamified, and engaging mobile app. Gaia will tell us hopefully more on how this mobile app is working and how it makes the sustainable practices more engaging, entertaining, and also rewarding. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning. 1 second that I will put my timer. I will try my best to stay within the time limits. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be here today and tell you our story. What we are going to focus today is how companies, individuals, organizations around the globe are uniting their vision with their action. First and foremost, personally, it is a personal honor to be back here in Bratislava. Some of you might know I have worked over 4.5 years with a company that is HQ'd here in Slovakia, and I wanted to use this opportunity to dedicate this keynote to a man that acted as my mentor, really had an effect on my life because he was the embodiment of paying it forward. Unfortunately, we lost him at the end of last year. His name is Pavel, and I wanted to dedicate this time to him. It's called story time, so please allow me a few minutes to tell you why I'm here and what has led me to work for this amazing company called AWorld. I was born in a quaint little village on the outskirts of Turin, Italy, from a family and a father who's a chocolate entrepreneur. As many of you here will know that if you're the daughter or the son of an entrepreneur, your childhood is a little bit different than everybody else. Which means there are no holidays, you're constantly working, and definitely all ends of the family are on deck. So I was raised with the belief that if you want to see change, you have to make it, and you have to work towards it. There is no time to lose, and definitely there is no one else that is going to do the work on your behalf. My curiosity was staggering from a very young age. I was curious to learn about new cultures, I was interested in new languages, and I definitely did not want to live in Italy only. So my journey brought me to study in California and then led me to the hustle and bustle of London, where I've spent over 20 years this far. This is me having a degree in London and having the time of my life. Many seasons have passed ever since. My career has led me, and I've been fortunate enough, has led me to work for the British government, the Argentinian government, the foreign ministry in Beijing, and then the core message that a great explorer always mentions, Robert Swan, is the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. So I was working in public affairs, and a lot of the conversation were focusing on, sure, we need legislation, we need change. However, it is the responsibility of the private sector to do more. It is the responsibility of citizens to think harder. So after a few years, I thought, okay, if all the responsibility relies in the public sector, maybe I should change my career pathway and join the private sector, sorry. Forward 10 years, I've dedicated my life to real estate companies, one of which is here in Slovakia, to advocate for smart and sustainable cities. What kind of technologies do we need to implement into our assets to really build those sustainable buildings and make sure that individuals understand the power that they have within their cities? I was not satisfied there either. It seems that all changes rely on us as individuals, but really, what type of impact can we have? How do we know if today you choose to eat a vegetarian or a vegan meal like this morning? Does that really count when we are faced with climate change? We are faced with, well, I don't know if you saw the news in the last couple of days in Dubai. Dubai looks like Venice right now. Is that human-made? Maybe. It is climate change on its own? Who knows? But the point continues to be, it is upon us to change our behavior. So how do we turn our intentions into action? Here is where the company comes through. The company is called AWorld, and we have created a tool that educates individuals, engages them through gamification, and provides, through the use of artificial intelligence, a personalized pathway of action that each and every one can do each day. We don't believe we are the best platform in the world. So we are actually supported by over 100 corporate clients around the globe, ranging from the United States all the way to Australia. We work with companies of the like of Estée Lauder, Banca Mediolanum, BlackRock, and many more. We are the only private sector company selected by the United Nations to deliver the Act Now campaign. Some of you might know, but the Act Now campaign is the global campaign that wants to educate individuals and make them understand their impact on the planet. Just over the weekend, we surpassed over 20 million positive actions that we recorded around the globe in less than 4 years. Similarly, last year we were appointed by the European Union to deliver the European Climate Pact that obviously focuses on us Europeans. Google has independently selected us as the best app for good worldwide. So how can I put it? All eyes are on us. And who are we? We are just over 70 people in a scale-up originated in Italy with a global expansion pathway. Fortunately, I'm part of that team so that I can advocate and show you how we are achieving those great goals. What is it in reality? So on one side, yes, we have an app. On the other side is a digital tool that is integratable into any of your platforms, intranet, website, pre-existing applications of your companies. And we really create that pathway to merge your corporate vision into an action pathway that it will include your employees and your customers on your journey. We know that 70% of all the corporate strategies fail because they only rely on the ESG team and the leadership team. However, if you're not involving all of your employees, those strategies are never going to be fulfilled. So that's where we come in. We created this gamified environment. At the end of the day, people like to be rewarded and they like to feel good. The reason why I started with that note about my mentor is because he always advocated with the fact that whatever you have, no matter how small, piece of knowledge, something that you can share, he always advocated to put it out there. Find other people that will learn from you, come close to people that think like you, and even better, conversate and talk to people that have the opposite vision from you. But definitely don't sit at home alone thinking, feeling overwhelmed by climate change. And I am one of those too. I sometimes open the news and I feel like, really? What can I do? There are wars around the world, floodings everywhere. I'm still on time. And you know, I want to turn off my TV, turn off my phone, and just be like, oh my goodness, I just don't want to engage anymore. I just want to take care of my little garden, my dog, etc., etc. But instead, we do have a moral responsibility. We in this room and across the globe are the fortunate people that have had the opportunity to be highly educated and that are given a platform to speak out. So speak out, no matter how small. Make sure that within your group, within your community, you can showcase how different actions that you can take have a meaningful impact. For example, if I told you that since the start of the year, through my actions, I was able to save 734 kilos of CO2. How many of you knows if that's a lot or if that's a little? Show of hands, is that a lot in 4 months? Who knows? Because unless you're a climate scientist, I don't know how that compares with the rest of my community. So that's where the app comes in and tells me, well, actually, let me quantify, as I'm based in London, with a benchmark that is understandable for me to make it obviously clearer. So 734 kilos of CO2 are equivalent to removing 34 trains from London to Paris. Okay. Now I have a metric that I can understand, and I also have a metric that I can share with my community. Now let's bring it back to corporate lifestyle. This tool allows you to have positive competitions between different departments, different communities, and different countries, and be rewarded for your positive actions. There is already enough negativity about this topic on the market. So instead of making me feel like, okay, you should never fly again, which obviously I came here on a plane. I came from London. Oh my goodness, I ate eggs this morning. Am I a terrible person because I had an animal product? That's not the point. The point is that the app rewards me every time I do something positive. So did I walk 2 miles today? I won 2 points. Did I choose a vegan meal where I saved 6 kilos of CO2 and 1,000 liters of water? Great, I win other points. And I cannot tell you how much this positive competition drives change within corporate mindsets. But let's move even beyond. I mentioned to you the Act Now campaign. Now, let's bring it forward. You probably all know that on the 22nd of April, it's Earth Day. For us working in the ESG climate change sphere, that is Christmas, New Year's Eve, and Easter all put together. We are organizing an event in Turin, sponsored by the Italian government, the mayor of Turin, because you might also not know that Turin is going to host, not this Saturday, This Saturday, we are running a 15 hours event that is going to attract 35,000 people from business community, but also all sorts of demographic, the average person on the street. If we keep having those conversations only within the boards and only within the ESG departments, we are not going to make it. And the years keep on running. As I was showing you the leaves, many seasons have passed for all of us. How fast did last week go by? The years pass at an incredible pace, and we need to make sure that we are all doing our best to be the best version of us and stop kicking ourselves if sometimes we just don't make it, or we're just tired today. That is okay, we're all humans. We're not supposed to perform at our 100% level each day. Almost at the end of it. So to conclude, what are the outcomes of delivering ESG strategies within your company with AWorld? We can improve your brand perception with real data. We can provide you quantitative and qualitative data of how all your stakeholders are contributing to your vision, and especially, what would they like to see more? We cover all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and we were so pleasantly surprised that one of the largest banks of Italy realized that they did not have a plan for gender diversity and inclusion as their corporate strategy. And after 1 year of work with us, they've realized that their 3,500, if I remember correctly, employees were reading more content on that topic than any of the other topics that were proposed to them. So what did the company do? They had two ways. They could have disregarded this information and just, business as usual, or they could reflect the willingness of their employees and update their strategy to listen to them and to showcase that they cared. What was the byproduct of this change? They have improved employee retention. So now, through our work, it's not just about attracting better talent, but it's also about retaining your existing talent, because you're educating them, you're raising their consciousness about thinking about topics that they care, but maybe until that point, they didn't find the right environment to discuss it within their corporate life. We also establish a sense of belonging. Again, to reiterate, you're not alone. Well, we are all alone, but we are not. We cannot survive on our own. We're not in the wild. We need to make sure that we feel part of a community and that we're all working towards a common goal. I wish this was my quote. It is not. It is from the great poet Mary Oliver. She said, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your wild and precious life? What are you going to do today, not in 5 years' time, that is really going to activate you and is going to fire up that passion that lies within your heart?" Because right now, what the world needs in this state and age is more passionate people that really act and behave with their heart on their sleeve. So, to conclude, change is in our hands. Knowledge is our language, action is our currency, and together is how we're going to win this major challenge. Thank you very much. Thank you. No Q&A.
No. Thank you very much for your passionate, motivating, and inspiring speech. Because we are running late a little bit with our agenda, we will start the second panel discussion on green finance straight away. I would like to welcome our distinguished guests and panelists. Please welcome Elizabeth Curmi, Director and Global Thematic Analyst at Citi Global Insights, Rudolf Pfeffer, Head of Banking and Finance Practice in Slovakia at Theiss, Marek, Mikolaj, the partner and leader of Financial Accounting Advisory Services and Climate Change and Sustainability Services at EY, and last but not least, Zuzana Kaparová, the head of European Investment Bank Group Office in Slovakia. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. So, green finance acts as a bridge, channeling financial resources towards environmental well-being It's like using money to vote for greener future, as far as I understand it. Currently, a major focus is put on financing renewable energy, investing in initiatives that promote efficient use of resources, supporting projects that reduce pollution or are good at waste management. All of our 4 panelists are representing a different area of green finance, so we will provide you with a brief insight into what green finance means, what products and services it entails, how the regulation of green finance in the European Union and beyond works. So welcome again. I would like to start with an opening question, because recently there has been much discussion in the EU about the Fit for 55 legislative package, and we know that it's going to be very costly to implement the package and to transform our economies to renewable energies, to carbon neutral economies. So what does it mean for the green finance and banking sector? You can start.
Is this on? Yeah. So, good morning. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. My name is Liz, and I work for Citibank. If you don't know, Citi is a large global bank that operates in, I think, over 100 countries. And I work in a unique part of Citi called Citi Global Insights. And we have an absolute pleasure of working with all our clients across Citi, whether that's institutional investors, corporates, private companies, governments. And what we do is we produce reports, totally digital reports on sustainability. So I work in the sustainable finance team. Citi has a huge history on sustainability. If you look at the last 10, 20 years, we were co-creators of green bond principles. We've created sustainable principles for the aviation sector, for aluminium sector, for the steel sector. So it's really integrated in the way we do, and we really understand the journey that our clients are facing on reducing emissions and decarbonizing over the years. And so it is really what we're trying to do is find ways to help our clients raise capital to do this, but also help them in the journey where they can grow and become much more profitable in doing so, because we are in this green economy. We need to make sure that that our clients continue operating in the sectors that they actually do. Now, that was a long-winded answer to Fit 55. I'm going to come to your question. So Fit 55 is an excellent package that the EU has to give us directions of where we need to go. You can look at it as being costly, but I look at it as being a huge opportunity for the industry to take up and actually be able to move into the direction and meet some of the commitments that the European Union Commission has on becoming net zero. So rather than just look at that as a cost, look at it as an opportunity in a direction of where we need to go by 2050. I'll pass it on to you.
A short reaction from all of you, please. Zuzana?
Okay, so maybe if I may, good morning as well, and thanks a lot for the invitation. So my name is Zuzana. I'm the representative of the European Investment Bank, which is the lending arm of the European Union, and we are the EU Climate Bank. So it's kind of bank of all of you, and yeah, I think we fit here with the topic of the financing and green financing, because and I will use the figures. Last year, all our investments were almost 90 billion of euros. And in green financing, we put almost 50 billion. So this is linked with our commitments as the bank and our goals, which we have in different strategies, and maybe we will speak about it later on. But yeah, we as the EU Climate Bank, we want to lead the path, you know, we want to be the example. And this is why also we are putting so many efforts in all these topics, and we are actually doing and putting the investments in the green finance, sustainable finance. And this is linked with the figures. In 2019, we came with our climate bank roadmap, where we put some goals and achievements for us as well. And we had a target of 2025, where we should be with like more than 50% of our financing and investments to be green one. And as I said a few seconds ago, already this year, last year, we somehow were close or even achieved the target. So I think we are on a good path, and we are the partner and one of the key player within this sector.
Mm-hmm. Do you also see the Fit for 55 legislative package rather than as a cost or as an opportunity?
Definitely, it will cost something, but it's also opportunity for other companies and all of us to live in better environment in the future. But we see that it's not easy to implement, and we are facing a lot of issues, not just the money, but also the data quality and also some other environment to make it happen. So we are here to discuss it, and hopefully there will be some solution. We had a breakfast with the Ministry of Environment, and it was told that, okay, there will be changes, they should support it and make it operational.
Would you like to react, or are we moving forward to the next topic?
Yeah, I think definitely ESG as a whole is a topic for the whole economy. Obviously, in terms of compliance costs, the perspective may differ for large blue chip corporates and for smaller SMEs. So I think it's one of the challenges of the new framework to make sure that it works for all parts of the supply chain.
Can I call you Liz?
Yes, please. The only person who calls me Elizabeth is my mother. She's the only one who calls me Elizabeth. Please call me
Okay, Liz. So you are representing the Citibank. You are operating on a global level. So where does the ESG linked finance and green finance stand today, and how does the emphasis on sustainability translate into the products and services that private banks are offering to their clients?
So thank you. And what we've seen is that the world at the moment is focused on very short-term things. So inflation, cost of living expenses, geopolitics, which is a massive thing that's happening at the moment, and all our politicians are looking at it. But and a lot of people have said, maybe we should put sustainability on the back burner. But actually the evidence doesn't show that. So if you look at the data and you see energy transition investment, and you compare 2023 to 2022, it grew 17%, mostly in mobility and power generation, a lot of it in China, second Europe, third US. The US is flying, the amount of investment that is happening in there. So the evidence doesn't show that. If you look at sustainable bonds or the green bonds, and you look at transition bonds, sustainable link bonds, and all the different types of different sustainable bonds you can buy, if you compare 2024 figures to 2023 figures in the same time period, that grew 11%. So the data is not showing that we're backtracking on sustainability. What is actually showing is that we're increasing the investment in green products. We're increasing a lot of investment going into power generation, into mobility, but also a lot of investment going into hard-to-abate sectors, new technologies, hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuels. And it's really, because I travel a lot around the world, it is just fantastic to see the innovation that is happening. Now, within a bank like Citi, we offer a number of different products and services that can help our clients raise the capital needed. In our advisory banking system, we're always advising companies of how they can reach their targets, or listening to our clients' needs and the opportunities and challenges that they're facing. In our treasury and trade solutions is where we offer working operating capital to our clients. We have something called sustainable supply chain finance, which helps our clients work with the suppliers very easily and offer KPIs that actually link that. We have a sustainable debt services that we do. We also have our market section that integrates trading with the ESG will or sustainable will of our clients. So it's integrated across all the products that Citi does and integrated all across our clients' needs and thinking also about bespoke things that our clients might need to raise the capital that they need.
So you pointed out some of the services and products that you are offering to your clients. So ESG finance, green finance has a really wide range of these products. I looked up some of them because it's not just about the green bonds. It entails also the sustainability-linked loans, green equity funds, green venture capital, social finance, or green insurance. We will now take a closer look at 3, and you will tell us the differences between them. So what is the difference between the green, sustainability-linked, and social finance products?
Thank you. By way of introduction, I'm leading our banking and finance practice at Wolfters here in Bratislava. And as a part of our service offering, we regularly advise clients on various legal issues across different product lines, including loans, bonds, and funds. And we can clearly see that ESG has become an increasingly important topic across all these product lines. And a number of different ESG-linked finance products emerge in the market in recent years. What we can also see is that when there is a discussion about green finance or sustainability-linked finance or sustainable finance, people tend to use these terms universally and interchangeably to describe all categories of financings with ESG element. That being said, I think it's worth pointing out that green finance, sustainability-linked finance, and social finance are very different animals when it comes to their proposed commercial terms as well as the underlying legal documentation. So I think in the context of any discussion it's very helpful to have clarity in terms of what type of product we are actually talking about. Most of the requests from our clients that we receive relate to green and sustainability-linked finance. In case of green finance, we talk about finance instruments where the proceeds of the financing are allocated towards certain green project, which is the project meeting the eligibility criteria set out in the EU taxonomy regulation. And the most typical examples may include green buildings, renewable energy, or other projects supporting the transition to circular economy, but it is still linked to a particular project. In case of sustainability-linked finance, we're talking about a finance instrument where the proceeds of the financing can be also provided for general corporate purposes, and they are not linked to a particular project. However, the sustainability element means that the borrower is expected to comply with certain KPIs which are environmentally relevant, and by complying with these KPIs, it improves its overall sustainability profile over the lifetime of the funding. As a reward for these sustainability efforts, the borrower typically receives an economic benefit in the form of a more favorable pricing on the product. And when it comes to these KPIs, again, they need to be aligned with the EU taxonomy regulation. Mm-hmm. Most typical examples include reduced CO2 emissions, better waste management, improved energy efficiency, etc. But what is very important is that in any case, they need to be aligned with the overall business strategy of a particular company. They need to be concrete, sufficiently ambitious, and measurable over the lifetime of the funding. So for me personally, the main distinction between green and sustainability-linked financing is that really the green financing is about project, whereby the sustainability-linked financing is more about the story and needs to be supported by a strong data set showing the current status quo, ideally some historic performance, but most importantly, a credible story going forward.
Mm-hmm. So looking at it from a company's perspective, not a bank perspective, how does ESG reporting in line with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive impact upon sustainability finance or sustainable finance?
Yeah, one of the good morning, everybody. So one of the main drawback that we see on the market is to support more sustainable finance is missing a quality data on sustainability topics like environment, social, and governance, and especially with coming this ESG reporting, where the corporate reporting sustainable directive will bring, it should fit this whole. We see that this reporting will be not just like reporting on a history, but will be forward-looking. So it will ask the companies really to understand where the negative impact is, for example, like contributing to the carbon emission and what are the future commitments, so they can clearly point out the decarbonization strategy, and it will be much easier for the bank to finance it because this strategy will be public. Currently, we are really facing to get a reliable commitment from the companies to be able to finance them and to make it happen, and also to support it with the data. So we need a quality data, and this reporting should help with it.
Mm-hmm. With the EU taxonomy, as it was also mentioned before, coming into effect, we are witnessing a significant shift towards a better regulation of green finance. How is it influencing the European Investment Bank, and how are you aligning with the European taxonomy in terms of your strategies and in terms of your counseling to clients?
So as I already mentioned, somehow concept of sustainable finance is already embedded in our operating model of the bank. We are the climate bank, and yeah, we want to, to learn or to show through examples. So we are also somehow, and we committed ourselves to the EU taxonomy objectives, and I probably need to mention here that in terms of volume, these days, EIB Group is the major lender in terms of climate action and environmental sustainability globally. So this is already the signal that we take it seriously, and that we also show it through our actions that we are part of different platforms, platforms on sustainable finance. We are part of different tasks, working groups. We work with other international financial institutions. We work directly with our clients somehow to improve and overcome different challenges which are there, and nothing is perfect from the very beginning. But exactly, this is why we take it as definitely an opportunity and challenge, and we don't want to see it as a burden, and we want to help also our clients, and not only like corporates or public sector, but also like we work with NGOs and other experts from all over the areas. We are also not using our investing arm or lending arm of the bank, but we are very much focusing on advisory services, and we are supporting the clients and different sectors with the advisory support, and we have different initiatives. For example, when we speak about climate action, environmental sustainability things, so we have a Green Gateway initiative, which is helping with exactly topics we are speaking today here. So definitely EU taxonomy we welcome. We work and we continue working on implementing EU taxonomy in the bank within our projects, our portfolio. As I say, we work to overcome different challenges. We speak with different actors. One of the challenges is exactly data availability reporting, and this is linked also especially with SMEs, and their challenge to be aligned and to fulfill the needs and commitments. So all this is on board. It's a challenge, and we are also we have work on progress in these aspects. But definitely it's a good way, because, and I like to use this expression, I think it's worth it not to have like 50 shades of green, but really like, to have a standard which will help with the transparency and, overcome the risks and, the fear of potential investors, etc., etc. So,
Liz, you are raising your mic.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? So, taxonomies are growing globally. So it's not only in the EU, you're seeing taxonomies emerge all over the world. But the European Union is particularly criticized globally, not in Europe, as being too legislative heavy. There's too much regulation going on. Like the one that scares, I think, Citi and our clients is this CSRD coming out, which is basically, as a corporate now, you're going to have to materially, you can tell it better than me, but financially materially tell the European Union what is material to your business based across a number of different sectors. Do you think that regulation is hindering the change in the European Union or slowing it down compared to other regions, or do you think it's on a fast track? I get that question always from my clients, so it'd be quite interesting to see what you think.
So, yeah, probably from EU perspective, and as you said, we are trying to regulate on EU level. We, as EU institution, we are part of this of these activities these days. So I wouldn't say anything against it, but I think and also like internally within the bank, definitely it's not easy. It's a totally different concept. You need a lot of data, cooperation, transparency, etc. But I think it's definitely helping, and for example, with CSRD, like Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, we as the bank are also committed. And these days, actually in December last year, our management committee approved a framework for sustainability reporting. And we are still somehow improving, developing this whole framework, how to, integrate within our, but also we take it as a responsibility to start really with this and to show the example to others, which could be followed and, which will be operational, which will be working and which will help. Because when we speak about this materiality and, EU is especially taking the principle of double materiality, which means that we are not looking, or we are not speaking only about like environmental and social impacts, meaning this impact materiality, but also like the financial materiality. So looking not only of the impacts of investment or business on environment, meaning our planet, the people, humans, etc., but also taking into account the environmental and social risks which are facing the organizations or investors, So I think all this, it's a very, very wide topic, which is linked with different areas. You need to put things together, connect it, link it properly. But I think it's worth it, and definitely it's not the end of the story. It's we are at the beginning of the path, I would say, but it's definitely worth it to continue, going on this path, to continue like overcoming challenges, improving, but like to go this direction.
You already opened the wide topic of the challenges. So a question for you, Rudolf. There are challenges linked to green finance, such as greenwashing, limited liquidity, and also lack of standardization, which was already also discussed. So therefore, we have these regulations and quite strict directives. What are the general trends in terms of regulations in Slovakia and in the European Union?
Thank you. If we talk about regulation in green finance, I think it's very important to realize what the key objectives of any regulation should be. In this context, the overarching objectives of any regulation should include product standardization, transparency and prevention of greenwashing in order to protect the integrity of the green finance product. And these objectives are equally important for companies who intend to raise money from external creditors, but also for banks acting as arrangers of green loans or managers of green bonds. In terms of regulation, there are different ways how these objectives can be achieved. One is the standard regulation, which is legally binding, has the force of law and the form of regulation or statutes adopted on a national or international level. And the other approach is private regulation by way of market self-discipline based on non-binding but relevant market standards published by relevant industry associations. And if we look at the regulatory landscape in the EU, we can see a mixed picture. On one hand, we have the EU taxonomy regulation, which is the general framework defining the eligibility criteria for green financing. But on the other hand, the EU taxonomy regulation does not offer a sufficient level of detail on many operational aspects of green financing. And in light of this legal vacuum, in my opinion, the prevailing status quo in the market is the second approach I described earlier, which is the private regulation based on recommendations and standards published by relevant industry associations. In this respect, I would like to highlight the role of some international organizations, mainly the Loan Market Association for loans, the International Capital Market Association for bonds, and the Fund Finance Association for funds. Mm-hmm. Each of them published their guidelines and principles, which were immensely helpful, and they played an important role in shaping the current regulatory environment. And in my opinion, they remain the best market practice for various products in green finance. That being said, we have seen some interesting developments in relation to bonds, where, first of all, ESMA published the public statement on expected disclosure, sustainability-linked disclosure in prospectuses, and secondly, the new green bond regulation, which was adopted end of last year and will start to apply as of December 2024.
Mm-hmm. So a good case in point is perhaps also the European Green Bond Regulation. How will this regulation change the green bonds environment compared to the existing framework?
It was also already mentioned that one of the main issue with the green bonds is missing certain credibility or transparency. So EU Green Bonds Directive is implementing some additional features that should ensure that the bonds that will be labeled as a green based on EU Green Bond standards will be really green. So what are the features? One is that at least 85% of the proceeds of the money that the issuer will collect will be allocated to EU taxonomy aligned activities or assets. So currently it's considered that EU taxonomy name and the sustainable economic activity. And the second main thing is that there will be regular reporting that is already existing, but this reporting will be required to be audited or get some attestation. But what's new to it that all the reviewers will need to be authorized by ESMA, mm-hmm. So European Security Market Authority, and ESMA will at the end take responsibility for the reviewers. So they will ultimately take some kind of, they commit that they will bring some additional transparency and assurance to the market with the green bonds. So that's a huge change because so far it was more voluntarily, now it's becoming more tight and strict.
Mm-hmm. Coming back to your focus and your operations, the green finance is concerned mainly with cutting CO2 emissions and with energy transition. So what do you do at Citibank to inspire your clients or to motivate your clients to also trade green bonds, but also how do you help them with their investments that are focused on this main area, energy transition and sustainability?
I mean, the main thing that we can do is listen to our clients' needs, understand our clients' needs, understand their business very well, and see what parts of their business we can raise capital for and see whether they need it. Sometimes our clients want to use the bond market because they want to raise capital. Sometimes they want to use the bond market to signal the market that they're going into that direction. Both actually work. So as Citi and other commercial banks do, we are there to listen to our clients' needs and use the products available. Our sustainable debt finance team is run by this guy called Philip, and he loves innovative financial instruments. He spends a lot of his time doing some really good innovative instruments that raise capital in places where they wouldn't actually usually do it. So the last one he did is he did a plastic credit bond with an NGO, with a number of different impact investors that come together and help this NGO collect plastics in emerging markets. And the impact investors get the interest back, but also get paid back depending how much plastic credits are actually sold on the market. He did another one called the Emission Reduction Bond, which uses similar things as investing in water purifiers for Vietnam children. So there are all these different places we can use it. And what's interesting working in finance is we are the center of it. We have our clients across the board, and we can always develop some innovative financial tools which are not usually available to actually meet our clients' needs. Whether that's in operating capital, like we did with sustainable chain finance, to sustainable debt markets, to securitization, that we did a fantastic transaction in Sanking in Africa on renewables and social finance to bring that in. So there are many different ways we can work with our clients to achieve their ultimate objective.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that businesses are ready to move from move to carbon neutral manufacturing and operations? Is it the main push factor of the European Union, or in this regard, or are there also any other push factors that are motivating these companies to change their operations and manufacturing to carbon neutral?
So sustainability is not going away. I remember when I've been working in sustainability for 18 plus years, and my father thought I was absolutely crazy to get into this field 18 years ago, and now he thinks he did exactly the right decision. It's not going away this time. Whether you're a big multinational company, or whether you're a mid-market player, whether you're a small player, you're either going to get caught out with regulation that's going to come, whether that's globally, there's carbon taxes all over the world at the moment, which is taxing the emissions, or you're going to get stuck with your suppliers. So big multinationals are going to come up to you and tell you, we really need to reduce our Scope 2 emissions across our supply chain. What is your strategy? What are you doing to do this? So it's not going away. So my advice to every single company, and I talk to clients on various different parts of their journey, is don't be a laggard, because it's going to come and bite you whether you like it or not. Be at the forefront of that discussion, because you're going to benefit much more. Talk to your banks about whether you're on the right strategy. Talk to your employees as well, thinking about what they need to do, and talk to your suppliers. In the end, we are on this journey to reducing emissions, becoming much more sustainable in the process, and making sure that your company is more profitable than it is now in the journey to become net zero. And I think that is really important.
What strategies are you using to motivate your clients to be more sustainable in their operations?
We have within the bank our policies and standards, which we are somehow imposing on our clients, because we are project-based bank. We work on concrete projects, and we do our appraisals and due diligence of the project and our client. So we have criteria and standards, as I say. We looked and we want to see within the project. So this is definitely it. Then, as I said, we are trying to be the example and to show the way. And maybe just back to the green bond issues. We as the bank, we are issuing currently climate awareness bonds and sustainability awareness bonds. With the so-called CAPs, we started already in 2007. So there is a huge time framework since then. And yeah, again, through and due to the EU taxonomy, we also promised that we will align our caps and subs, with all these requirements and EU bond standards, which is currently what we are doing. And I would say, because there are like 4 key principles and the key requirements, and really like sustainability requirements are tough, I would say, and this is also one of the most challenges for us, because with the other effects like transparency and auditing and all this, we can somehow handle, and we have the experience, exactly as I said before, through our caps and subs, which we are, working with. But like this EU taxonomy alignment, do no significant harm, and also like contribution to like substantial contribution, and like the meeting, and especially showing in Europe how the minimum social safeguards are somehow achieved. These are kind of challenges for us, but yeah, we are working on it. We are using our experience. This is why we have all these different platforms we work, and we want to see what is working, what is not working. We are speaking and looking into the real examples from the projects, and trying to be on the track, because also our president, and it was at the beginning of this year in Davos, she somehow announced our ambition to be the first issuer of EU green bonds, we as the EU Climate Bank. So it's one of our priorities definitely currently.
Mm-hmm. What would you recommend to companies that would like to issue green bonds? What should be taken into consideration?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that think about a little bit more broadly. It's not just setting ultimate goal, but setting the process and government itself. It's really to making sure that you will deliver the trust to the market. And I will come again to the data. So sourcing the data, making sure that you can evaluate based on the criteria you set up in the framework is really crucial, because you will need to report on a yearly basis on this, and there will be second party auditor, somebody asking you difficult question to prove it. So but true is that on the market there are best practice that you can learn from. So it's not rocket science. And as I mentioned, the CSRD reporting will be a game changer, but because of all of a sudden we will have a huge range of the data that currently we are missing. Just imagine that in Europe, 50,000 companies are expected to report based on the CSRD. In Slovakia, is more than 600. Mm-hmm. Of course, some of them will apply exactly, many of them that will bring data to the market.
Thank you. Let's take the 2 questions from the Slido. Green bonds, isn't the cost of data collection driving the cost of this financing too high? Have there been technology development to overcome this concern? Who would like to answer this one? You will take the second one? Okay, let's take the second one. Compared to the US, aren't we behind in terms of green investments? Can the EU keep its competitiveness?
That's a question that I get a lot. So I love the Inflation Reduction Act that the US government did, which is ironically called the IRA. So I live in Britain, calling it the IRA is something that we don't really do. But it's what the government did. It put $369 billion down into various different tax credits, so various different grants, and said, go and innovate. So here's the money, go and innovate. So you're seeing investments in carbon capture, utilization and storage, in direct air capture, in the greening of systems, in power generation. So that is absolutely fantastic. And our clients that we talk to love it. Sometimes it's very difficult to get, but at least it is easy to understand and where to get that money from. But that doesn't mean that the EU is not doing that. So the EU has something called the Green Innovation Fund that it can get. It's where EU ETS central money that you get from the EU ETS system, a proportion of it goes into this innovation fund. It is not easy to get because a lot of it is cross-border projects that need to be done, but there is investment you can make. It's just very difficult to navigate. So I think not that one is better than the other. I think one is easier and faster to do, like the US, and the European Union has to be congratulated on its journey to become so far. It's actually the second most investment is happening in the European Union, but it is less easy to get. But both of them are very good. But our clients do like the US Inflation Reduction Act. I think the EU can keep its competitiveness if it ensures that it protects and has a dialogue with these industries to remain here. And there is the CBAM coming up, which is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism coming up, which will protect some of the leakage that would happen without that.
Thank you very much. Would you like to add anything to it?
I was looking at the first question.
Yeah, the first one, please. Go ahead.
So I will try to answer this in the context of the new EU regulation on green bonds, because what's interesting about this regulation is that it will lay down a uniform set of requirements to be complied with by those issuers who decide to label their green bonds as European or EU green bonds. So it is always a voluntary decision to some extent, and it would still be technically possible for companies to continue issuing their green bonds outside of the framework of the new regulation. What is clear, however, is that the new green bond regulation will trigger some additional compliance costs, which will be associated with some new mandatory disclosure requirements, new requirements as to which ESG disclosures must be verified by an external reviewer, etc. So it would always be a cost-benefit analysis on the side of the issuer, whether they opt in for the new regulatory framework and issue their green bonds as EU green bonds, in which case they would definitely need to revisit their current bond programs and bring them up to speed with the new requirements. Or they decide to test the market and continue issuing their green bonds in the current setup, which is based on ICMA recommendations mostly. And it will be up to the market to decide which bonds will be more interesting for investors. Obviously, this cost-benefit analysis may result in different answers depending on the size of the company. Of course, the big corporate regularly tapping international capital markets may be more inclined to adopt the new regulation compared to smaller companies.
Thank you very much. It's a very broad topic and we could sit here for another 1 or 2 hours, but our time is up. Thank you very much for your views, for your experiences and sharing your thought with us. Please enjoy the rest of the event and the rest of the day. And we will move to our next point on the agenda. Thank you again. Yeah, great, thank you. Tak po pútavej panelovej diskusii.
After a very attractive panel discussion, now we'll welcome Martin Hojsík to the stage, who is the Vice President of the European Parliament and Vice President of the Progressive Slovakia political party, who deals with environment protection, saving of biodiversity and saving our health. With more than 25 years of practice, he's a very renowned expert and a member of several European Parliament committees. And from my perspective, he's a very important ambassador for sustainability. I'm very happy to see you here. Good morning.
Speak Slovak or English, but don't worry, I'm going to be switching to Slovak because the majority of the audience is in Slovak. So since you have a translation, I think it's going to be possible to do in Slovak. Takže ešte raz aj odo mňa. Dobré ráno.
So once again, good morning. I'm very honored to speak at this very important conference because ESG is not only about paperwork and cannot only be about paperwork. It cannot just be to tick that I did this, I reported this, I admitted another 5 employees for reporting, more bureaucracy. What they want us to do, I need to do more and more paperwork, but it should be about taking this as an opportunity that we got because of a sad thing. What we did as a society, Slovakia, Europe, the entire world, we crossed the limit, or we went beyond the limits of this planet. We live on a restricted planet with restricted resources. And we have spent those resources in a way that wasn't imaginable. And today, children are born with toxic substances, with microplastics in their blood. The climate is in a state that climatologists are really concerned about. Loss of biodiversity is coming close to mass extinction. And we really do have a huge problem. And you heard this from activists and hopefully also from scientists. And these are the bad news. But the good news is that the solution to all these challenges is, as Werner Hoyer, the ex-president of the European Investment Bank, told me, is the best business opportunity for our generation. Because let's be honest, without you, without your companies, your employees, we cannot resolve this challenge. And we will have to address this in a way to fit into this planet, because we have no second planet. I don't think, as Elon Musk, to move to Mars. I like this planet quite well, but the solution has to be socially just, so that it doesn't increase the social inequality, so that it helps people. And the solution must be such that at the end of the day, the business thrives, because it cannot be based on subsidizing it, because I have to take the money for subsidies from somewhere. And this is great about it, that these solutions do exist. These solutions can be seen around us. And many times what we need to stop doing, and what politicians need to stop doing, is to put obstacles in front of you. This is a huge problem. And the task for business is to take sustainability and all this ESG concept as something which is not about red tape, but it's about an opportunity to do things in a better way. Recently, I visited one chemical factory in Svit, Slovakia. And it's clear for the Slovaks which factory it is. And they do a lot in energy efficiency. And their motivation, primary motivation, wasn't to protect the climate and the planet, although they will say it like this. But they realize that if they are able to monitor energy consumption, I mean both heat and power, in the individual parts of the factory, up to the level of machines, individual machines in real time, then they are able to massively cut energy consumption. And this increases their profit, because they will consume less energy when they involve employees. It's not about filling in some charts or spreadsheets, because the spreadsheet is generated by a system. You don't need an extra person for that. But if they involve employees, that when the employee sees, when the manager sees that consumption for a certain machine dropped, then they talk to the shift foreman. What did they do? And then they introduce it as active changes. And over the last 3 years, they were able to cut gas consumption by 40% without any impact on their production. And this was reflected in their cost, in their profit, and this is reflected in how efficiently they are able to do things. And this is what it should be about employee engagement, community engagement, to do things better and to help the planet, but also to help my own bottom line. And these are the opportunities I need to take. Another example for me are innovative companies. It is said about Slovakia that we're the assembly hall, and it's mostly true, unfortunately. But what we have here are also incredible brains coming with global solutions. But what we are doing, unfortunately, is that we chase them away.
In Prešov, we have a Slovak company doing some lighting stuff. So in case you come to a big supermarket in Slovakia, so all the lighting comes from this company. They use street lights. They have street lights in Kiev, in Jerusalem, and also in Dubai. Do you think we have their solution here in Slovakia? We don't. They have come up with a great solution because everybody says we need an infrastructure for charging e-cars and e-vehicles, and they have come with a solution they will be exporting to the Netherlands. It's a charger that you can integrate into a street lamp. So you need to reconstruct the street lighting, and in case you do it right, you can add the charging cable there as well. And for example, in Petržalka, you have so many parking places. There are street lamps everywhere, and they can also become part of the charging solution. So if you talk to the management of this company, the only thing you get from them is how difficult it is in Slovakia, how difficult it is to get any subsidies for innovation, and how other countries are tempting them to go there. And it's a big task for Slovakia to retain the innovative companies. So the Slovak companies need to stay here, because without them, we will not get out from this mid-income trap. And last thing I want to talk about is the interlinking that we need at the end of the day, an interconnection. Because yes, you can achieve a lot of things on your own, but the networking, the interconnection that we need to have, and let's hope we will fight for it together, is to connect public policy, financial institutions, and the private sector together by educating them. And I love using the example of energy efficiency buildings, because to tackle climate change, buildings play a crucial role. 40% of energy is being used for heating and cooling. And in Slovakia, if I'm not mistaken, we have 400,000 residential buildings that need reconstruction, renovation, and then there are, of course, public buildings and private sector and so on. But if you look at our school situation, but if you look at residential buildings, there is huge potential which is not being used. We have 15 billion euro at disposal from European money for decarbonizing and adaptation of climate issues until 2030. It is unbelievable amount. It's 15% of Slovak GDP, annual GDP in Slovakia. And we could have a simple long-term plan for renovation and reconstruction of residential buildings, where you would combine state subsidies or state aid, and with also a quarter of household in Slovakia is at the edge of energy deficiency, let's say. And if we connect it with banks, I mean, all the documents that the banks require and acceptance by the state and so on, so you don't need to do double work. And if we could achieve it to get the money to the people easier in a more targeted way. On Monday, I took part in a conference where I was also talking. The minister Taraba was there, and he says there is a lack of workforce for energy certificates. But why? Because, I mean, the criteria is much more complicated here in Slovakia compared to Great Britain. In Great Britain, they just need a course for this kind of assessors, but we should make the system in Slovakia simpler in order to be able to issue these certificates. So we also need to educate the people working with heat pumps and installing them and so on. So to have a really complex renovation of buildings, we need to lure investors here. to make the whole thing more efficient and also modernization more efficient. And we could use the funds that will be used for building renovation. We could multiply the funds, and the result would be economic progress. It will create new work positions, and it would be a higher quality living standards for people. It would be a higher energy independence from people such as Mr. Putin and his regime, because we are sending billions to them, to him still. So basically we are paying energy to Putin. It's like every Slovak citizen would pay 500 euros for energy that is being supplied from Russia, and we would have a better quality of standard of living and better condition, and we would keep the resources here in Slovak companies, and even in the state budget it would stay, in case if, I mean, heating a school doesn't cost you anything, or heating a municipal office, because it would be an energy efficient building, then you can have a lot of savings. But you need a systematic approach where all the stakeholders are cooperating, the state together with the businesses, together with the educational facilities. But unfortunately, until now, in Slovakia, we only have like 3 various programs for the citizens under 3 different ministries, and what is missing is a cooperation. And this is what it's all about. It's not only about filling out forms, and we need consultants, and we need etc., everything that we need. So we should seize this as an opportunity for further development and progress, an opportunity to not only fit into on our planet, and still that we would also be able to live a good life on our planet and in our country. Thank you. I would now like to continue with, we can see that ESG is an area that can help not only people but also companies to become more green, with the common goal to live a better life, because this is the goal that what we achieve. And now it is Anna Michalková, Head of Public Affairs, and is part of Seesame, and she will be speaking about a research called How Are You in Slovakia? And yes, today we are now discussing many topics, and if you want to find out is this the right place for you, and what do the people think outside of our ESG positive bubble. So I want to share some interesting data with you, how the Slovak public sees the ESG topic. So before we look at the data, I have a very important question to you. I want to ask you to open a Slido and click on it, and my question is, how do you feel today? How do you enjoy today's conference? So please enter or open up Slido, because before having lunch I want to know whether I should really speak fast or if you can endure with me. So let's have a poll. How do you enjoy today's conference? How do you feel today? Everyone, please participate. Yeah, I feel fine, thank you. Yes, third of you is looking forward to the coffee break already, but the majority is telling me that you feel all right and you feel nice, good. Yes, but there are still quite a few people who are looking forward to the coffee break, so I will try to get to the point. I am not asking this question without any thoughts on my mind. So what we work on is a research, or together with the Slovak Academy of Science and other partners, with a research agency, and we as a communication and consultation agency, we already since the beginning of the pandemic, we are asking the Slovak public, based on many parameters. Okay, so it's an online research. We do have an online respondents pool. It's a quote quota selection. So 1,000 respondents took part. All the socio-demographic data were taken into consideration, so age, gender, address, and so on, while keeping all the standards in place. So we are gathering this data already since the beginning of the pandemic and asking about different topics. And now we included the topic of ESG, and we asked the public, how do you perceive the companies behaving in different areas? So a teaser for the start. So you will be able to enjoy this fresh pastry during the coffee break, but the only fresh thing I have is the fresh data from March 2024. So it's the first time we are presenting this data. What are the three most important issues I would like you to remember? The first thing is, the good news is, you are right to be here, and it's good that you are here. So the data show that consumers and the public cares about the topic of ESG. How do we know that? First figure, 65% of people from this sample, from the respondents, from the whole basically pool of respondents in Slovakia, are stating, yes, companies should pay greater attention to informing the public about their ESG and impact on ESG. And just to prove it right, we asked the question a little bit differently, but the result was still 64%. So 64% of the respondents said that it is important for them that companies publish their information in a transparent way, their ESG activities. So even people who would agree more with this statement were people from the regions of Bratislava and Košice, and respondents over 50 years old, so the age was 50 plus. And it's quite an interesting data because we can see that the population is aging, so it's an important information also for companies. So this is the first takeaway message. Consumers and the public want to be informed, and they are interested in ESG issues, and they want to know about what the companies do in this respect. The second message, the ones from the public who know the companies, they trust the companies they know. But let's turn it around a little bit. So how does the population perceive this topic? You can see that there is a split. So it's 50-50. 50% believe that companies pay sufficient attention or big attention to ESG topics, but the second half believes that there is insufficient attention paid to these topics. So the population is divided. 65% of the people are stating that publishing the ESG activities of companies is just marketing for the companies. What is interesting to notice is the people who are more likely to believe it. It's young people 18 to 29 years old, and then the older population over 50. And the ones who are more likely to disappear are people of 30 to 40 years old. The result is here that the people who have a better insight into how companies really operate, so the one who know it are the ones of productive age and probably working for such companies, and they perceive ESG communication in a more positive light. So the second main message is the more the companies speak about their corporate culture, values, and ESG activities in a more transparent way, the higher trust of the public they can gain. And the third message I want to leave with you is sustainable brands and companies are trendy. So these are three figures I want to share with you. 56% of young people 18 to 20 years old stated that when they do shopping, they prefer companies and brands who are sustainable and are obliged to behave in a sustainable way. 74 people of higher education are willing to pay more for products and services that are labeled as being ecological or sustainable. And 49% of respondents are stating that when looking for a job, the ESG or sustainable aspect is important for them. So these are the three things you should remember from today's. So consumers and the public want to be informed. They want to be informed about ESG impact of the company. And the ones who know the companies, they trust them more. And the third message, that sustainable brands and companies are in trend. And just to sum up, this is the last phrase that speaks for itself. ESG is the new reputational index for companies, or has become the new. So that's why, to conclude, I want to invite you to an event. We will be giving away ESG award in cooperation with Forbes magazine. So the ones who already have your own ESG report, a local one, a Slovak one, you still have the chance to send it to us. Of course, the biggest companies, we have already discovered them because they report in a transparent way, just as the public wants them to. And we will have a Forbes Business Fest on May 30th on Tiršovo nábřeží, and AmCham is a proud partner of this event. So we are looking forward to meeting you, and now the break is ahead of us.
Ďakujeme veľmi pekne zo
Thank you very much to Mrs. Michalková from Seesame. I think this is great news. It confirms what the topics of discussion. And now we'll have the coffee break. And because we are lagging behind in our agenda, I would like to ask you to come back here at 12:10, and we'll move to the next agenda point, and these will be round discussions. Enjoy your coffee break and see you back here in 30 minutes, and we'll have a discussion or discussions with our team leaders.
Years. It was worth it, but the future is ahead of us.
Together, we are ready to tackle the challenges of the future. AmCham, Slovakia.
Tá prvá téma, otázka bola, že čo...
So the first question was, what was the most interesting aspect for our participants as for ESG reporting? And it has shown that it's data. Data and processing data, data collection, and all the reporting of data is the issue that's most interesting for our participants. And the ones who already have experience know that it is a demanding process and difficult process. And for the second question we had, what are the biggest challenges with ESG reporting? And again, data. Complexity of data has repeatedly been shown as an important factor. So data as such, to a large extent, are resonating. And it was also mentioned something like the implementation of the whole process, and that it is unknown. Companies don't know what to expect, what the whole process consists of, how do you need to implement it, how do you start reporting it, and so on. So the whole implementation and ensuring a smooth start of the process of ESG reporting in connection to the data complexity has been shown as one of the biggest challenges. The third question was regarding what would we understand as being a success within 6 months, and what would be a success in a long-term horizon, 3 to 5 years. For the 6-month perspective or horizon, what was mentioned repeatedly are many ideas, and we put them into several categories. One of it is understanding within the company, leadership, management of the employees who are part of the process. So without the management being convinced that ESG reporting makes sense, then it is not enough just to have some enthusiasts in the company. It needs to be managed. And communication was mentioned also in connection to ensuring the awareness and information across the company. And in the long-term perspective, we have agreed that the companies who are implementing reporting, they perceived it as a success already, the publication of the first report, and also mentioning of the benefits and feedback or feedback given to reporting that can help the company to focus on particular areas for the years to come. So receiving a feedback after the first report and knowing direction to go. So I hope I summed it up in a correct way. Thank you very much. The second topic was diversity. Thank you. My name is Bruno Stefanik, and I was the one facilitating our session, our group dealing with diversity and inclusion. So the first point we agreed on, that diversity and inclusion is a topic that needs to be talked about and needs to be put on the table, because we agree that companies are not implementing the topic on the company level, so they don't have their own guidelines or policies. Either it's the management that's still not convinced about the importance of these topics. And we know that inclusion and diversity are beneficial for the companies, and we know of the risks if they are not implemented. And we can't expect, as long as companies are not convinced, to bring them on board. So we have agreed that this is one of the topics that's important. What are the risks and challenges that we are perceiving when implementing the topics? So there are some difficulties in the communication aspect, so understanding what it is, and these topics are basically creating opportunities for the companies. The company needs to be motivated to understand, to perceive the topics as being important. Of course, we need relevant data to present to the company, so they understand that diversity and inclusion have a direct positive impact on the bottom line also of the company, and also to understand the risks which are connected to ignoring the topic of diversity and inclusion, or which risk the companies are facing when they are not discussing the issue. So the challenges are in the area of communication and how to communicate the topic within the company in the right way, and also towards the employees, towards the management, and then also towards the supply chain. So we convince the stakeholders and actors that it really makes sense to implement also the aspect of diversity and inclusion. What needs to happen in order to make this story a success? So from a short-term perspective, we have agreed that, the low-hanging fruit is really some kind of communication and dealing with big companies and their ecosystems, and that bigger companies can lead the way and show an example to the smaller companies, also maybe big, some automotive companies working with suppliers, and also maybe giving them the criteria they need to fulfill in order to be able to cooperate with the big ones. And also some criteria dealing with diversity and inclusion, also in the supply chain. And in the long-term perspective, it is more a paradigmatic change that connects with the way of how do we communicate the topic, how do we praise and how do we reward inclusion and diversity. So when the big players show an example to the small ones, how do they do it, how do they communicate the topic in order to make the rest of the stakeholders in the supply chain to make it relevant for everyone. Thank you. The third topic. Thank you.
Nám poviete.
Ďakujem, dobrý deň. Moje meno je Ondrej.
My name is Ondrej Šeban from company PwC, and I will present you the conclusion or findings of the third topic dealing with PPA. And I mean, it's a more technical topic. Maybe you don't know what is PPA. I will just briefly. We are not talking about agricultural paying agents, but we are speaking about the power purchase agreement. These are specific agreements for power purchase, and we are speaking about electricity and energy from renewable resources. And this topic in Slovakia is still really just starting compared to our countries. So maybe even the knowledge of this issue is not so broad compared to maybe Poland, where PPA contracts are very well developed compared to other Central and Eastern European countries, just like Bulgaria or Romania. And while we were discussing the topic and the issues that should interest us, we also spoke about some barriers. It has shown and it has been proved that why it is not working well in Slovakia so far. So the question was, what would the company need to know about the topic of PPA? I have somehow put it into 2 points. The first point is the legislation framework, legal framework, and everything connected to contracting, because it is very important to know how to close a deal, how to sign a PPA contract, because the companies are used to some standard contracts with the power supplier, and they know this area, they know the area about, some hedging. However, PPA has some specific criteria, how the contract has to be closed, how it has to be negotiated, also including development of renewable resources. So there are many kind of factors which are playing in a part regarding permission, regarding accessing the network and so on. And the legislation with PPA, there are some criteria also for tax issues, for accounting and so on. So this can differ from a standard power supply. And the second point is how it can be applied in practice. Maybe it's already in place here, or any positive experience from other countries with PPA contracts and so on. So these are the questions we need to ask ourselves in order to be able to understand what PPA for renewable resources is about. And in order to really progress and develop here, what are the barriers hindering this issue? Why don't we have any PPA contracts? For example, in Poland, there are maybe 40, 50 PPA contracts already closed. So one barrier is information. And companies very often don't have access to sufficient information. They don't know how it really works. They don't know how PPA contract should be closed, what kind of parameters need to be set. So like overall knowledge of the issue. And the second barrier is regarding the implementation, because PPA implementation requires certain steps. They might differ from a standard contract for power supply. And the contract can take longer on the whole process. So these are the two barriers we have identified. Of course, there are many more in Slovakia, but we picked these ones as the main ones. So, and what could make it successful? What could help the story to be successful? PPA for green resources. So one we have identified is mindset, awareness and mindset of the people who make the decisions. So on one hand, it can be companies, company management, or the companies need to be aware of the importance and why it is important and what is the benefit for me in it, but also the mindset of other stakeholders. For example, stakeholders from the public sector, also regulatory office or other stakeholders where cooperation is needed, including the ones who develop projects dealing with renewable energy resources. And I'm also including the whole energy sector, which is more traditional and tries to control the market. And interesting idea was mentioned, like it will start working when the involved people and responsible people will be accountable. So they need to be accountable for their actions. In case they don't fulfill their goals, they will be sanctioned. Of course, the objective is decarbonization and green development of green project and so on. So this would be for the subject of PPA.
Ďalšou témou.
The next roundtable discussion topic was ESG communication, and Anna Michalková from Seesame will present the outcomes. Thank you. We started with the communication to be the topic that is interesting for everybody and resonated with all other groups. Everyone wants to learn how to communicate this topic better, and one of the rules is less is more. So also with regard to time and your ability to absorb information, I will try to stick to this rule. And so what ESG is, what it represents, and how to navigate all the information that is out there, and how to design communication strategy. And this can be broken internal and external communication, and this is related to the barriers identified. There's a lot of information, a lot of data, which data are interesting to communicate, how to remain authentic in your communication and design it in a way that it is interesting and sufficiently engaging for internal employees and for the C-level of decision makers in our company. So how can I convince my boss to deal with the ESG topic and deal with communication? These are the main barriers identified. How to navigate the data and how to design internal processes for the communication to be designed further and to be one of the important topics. This is related to the fact that we need to know what we are authentically good at, because when we design the communication by putting together all kinds of activities we're doing, we just flood our internal employees and external cooperators. So find authenticity and order, and then can design the communication. When I have a leadership engagement and when I have the correct tools, how with gamification elements, how to involve employees, the communication will be much smoother. Thank you. Thank you. And in conclusion, we ask Igor Bubeník for Corwin and the round table. and the discussion outcomes. Thank you for the floor. We've heard a lot today. I do not want to repeat things because we agreed what the issues were, what the key topics were. For real estate, this industry is relevant to us all. 90% of our days are spent in buildings, and buildings produce most emissions. So ESG in buildings is a topic for every one of us. And what we agreed on was that the biggest challenge in Slovakia is bureaucracy. It takes extremely long to develop the buildings, and it's then difficult to respond to any changes. There are standards that are restrictive, and that makes the development more expensive, and this also has an impact on green buildings. And last but not least, we communicate these ESG topics in a very complex way, and it's very difficult, and I do not understand it. There are too many targets, too many data that I'm not familiar with, so better not to start at all. People find it difficult. So maybe some general guidelines. What we should do is definitely simplify this topic, use human language, set short-term, feasible and clear objectives that will bring benefits. Communicate ESG not from the perspective of we need to do this and this is the legal requirement, but what is the benefit of the green building or of green policies. This is important. How can people benefit? Because unless the sustainable building is a pleasant environment, nobody will live there. It will remain empty. To have an ESG team, ESG people with clear competencies, who have it as their agenda, who try to improve this in their company, and from my viewpoint, not to be afraid to be the pioneer, initiator, set goals and follow them, pursue them. And if the topic of green buildings is interesting for you, you're welcome to join the presentation of this building. There are colleagues who will lead this excursion. I also wanted to invite you to the excursion of the Einpark office building. In this moment, I would like to say goodbye to you. Hopefully, the conference focusing on ESG and not only the green topics, hopefully it was interesting for you, and hopefully you will leave with a lot of interesting information and to apply ESG into your corporate strategies. I would like to thank the organizational team, especially Zuzka Serinova, with whom I was in close touch in the recent days, Erika Vitálošová for great guidance. Also, thanks for a perfect script, and I would like to thank all panelists for coming a long way to this conference, and hopefully they will come to some of our conferences in the future. Thanks for being part of this great conference. It's the second edition, and the topics, there are a lot of topics. Hopefully we'll meet next year and in the years to come, and we'll be able to jointly follow the progress. My name is Barbara Jankušák, and I'm very happy that I was able to moderate this conference. And now I invite you to the excursion of the Einpark offices building, and goodbye.
Years. It was worth it, but the future is ahead of us.
Together, we are ready to tackle the challenges of the future. AmCham, Slovakia.